Welcome everyone. I'm Lottie Starshot, your local magical girl with a slight gotcha addiction. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I'll be playing Carved in Stone. This game was made by B Studios and it was submitted to a few game jams on itch.io. It was submitted to the Josei After Dark jam, the Monstrous Desires 2024 visual novel jam, and then the Fantasia Jam 2024. This game does have a streamer mode, so yeah, some of these CGs will have to be censored, but that just means you have to play it yourself and not just watch mine. But still watch mine, and then play it yourself and see which ending you get. I do believe there are 3 endings and that it is fully voiced, even the not safe for work scene, so I am very much looking forward to those. We're gonna just go ahead and jump right in, and I cannot wait to see what this has in store for me. Oh, as always, I have all links in the description if you guys want to check out the game yourself. Unfortunately, we have to do the streamer-friendly version. Alright, this version does not show the not safe for work images on the screen for people to play while streaming. The text and audio are still present though, so... Scattered golden rays force their way through the congested gray sky, reflecting off the wide assortment of potion bottles on the back wall. I continued to sweep the floors and watched as the dust and dirt fluttered and glittered in the sunlight. As I swept my way behind the counter, I caught a glimpse of something shiny in the broken mirror. Something I couldn't bring myself to ignore. As I peered closer, I felt my heart turn to stone. What I saw was a singular silver hair. Reaching tentatively with my fingers, I lifted the single strand to further inspect, hoping that my eyes were failing me, or preferably that I'd gotten some lint in my hair from sweeping the floors. No such luck. It was a cruel twist of fate, a clear sign of my age staring back at me, almost taunting. I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose, and cursed time itself. Hey, Missy. A dirty little man grunted, startling me out of my morning session, the sun nearly disappearing. It was the town drunkard. I did what I could to put on my best customer service voice and welcoming smile. What can I get for you today, sir? You got any more of that stuff? His description wasn't especially helpful. I hope he hadn't mistaken my shop for the liquor store. I'm afraid you have to be a touch more specific. Oh, the blue stuff. Helps settle my stomach. Oh, I know what tincture you're looking for. Give me just a moment. I turned, expecting any blue bottles I found on the shelves, eventually finding the exact medicine he was referring to. How much do I owe ya? That'll be 4 silver pieces. 4 silver pieces? Awful steep, don't you think? I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. It hadn't been too much other times. Was he trying to purposely be a bother today? Was he that bored? Bro, that is my price. I am not lowering that. I have to make a living. Well, I'm terribly sorry, but that's the price. It's difficult to get a hold of, and my vendor had to raise the price to accommodate. There's nothing I can do. I can't go any lower. There is a beat too long of uncomfortable silence. Excuse you? And so he made a horrible mouth sound and spat on the floor I had just finished cleaning. You can give me that shit back and get out of here though. That was rude as hell. You're cleaning that up. I sucked in my bottom lip to keep myself from doing something I regret. Now my stomach was swirling. No wonder such a shrewd wench like you hasn't found a husband. It stung more than I cared to admit. Normally, I had just written it off as the babblings of an unpleasant man. But somehow, today, or rather lately, these sorts of comments dug their way under the skin more than usual. You should be focused on finding one before you end up dying alone in this place. And what if I want to be alone? If you don't starve first, with your prices being the way they are. Are all men like this in this area? Because no wonder I want to stay single. A WR, overcharging a poor old man. I fought for this village when it came under attack by a dragon, you know. Just so you could overcharge your savers, ungrateful bitch. Now that's enough. His eyes grew wide, somehow surprised by my outburst. Was he using that whole savior stick to try and get away by being an asshole? He made a move into his garments, and I braced myself for the worst. Reaching for the broom, I set aside behind me. But before I could so much as lift it off the ground, there was another voice.
Drop it, lest you lose your hand right along with it.
The haggard man froze for a moment before swinging in the direction of the voice. I hadn't even heard anyone else come in. And who the hell do you think you're talking to? Hello! Hello, Mr. Savior! His voice lost all momentum as his eyes registered the man towering over him in the doorway. I recognized him. He was a regular. Though I didn't know his name, I never had the courage to ask. The man stood blinking at him stupidly.
You need to leave.
Ooh, I love that sneer in his face. The room was filled with a sudden chill, accompanied by an ominous aura radiating from the man, one of the likes I had never felt before. It sent the drunkard scrambling for the door, nearly tripping over his feet as he did so. The man watched in disgust as he fled.
Cunt.
His dark expression and aura dissolved by the time he met my eyes, sending a chill down my spine, the last remnants of the sudden cold that had come when he threatened the bothersome man. When did it get so drafty in here?
Are you okay?
He asked, saving me from thoughts of more potential repairs. Fine. I growled in the direction of where the drunkard had stood just before. You should check on him. He probably cracked his skull against the pavement. I said, gesturing to the doors with my head. He was about to get a broom handle down his throat had you not stepped in when you did. Luckily, I wasn't in real danger. He could barely stand, yet alone stab me. The striking man bit back a laugh, smiling to himself. I'm thankful you handled it for me.
It wasn't an issue, madam.
I lifted my hands as if to ward off the pleasantries. You can just call me Lottie. Ma'am or madam makes me feel old.
Well, I'd hate to make you feel old.
It was too late for that, unfortunately.
I'm surprised I never asked for your name before. It's very fitting.
Oh, well, thank you.
If you don't mind me saying so, it's lovely. Just like yourself.
Sir, are you flirting with me? Flattery, huh? He didn't need to compliment me, especially if there was no truth to it. It felt like he was doing everything possible to ease my nerves. At least it seemed genuine, and was a nice change of pace from the conversation before. I'm fine. It's not the worst of what I encountered running this place. You're too kind, young man. I retorted good naturally.
You can trust me when I say, I'm no boy.
Oh? A devilish smirk graced his sharp features, his eyes squinting in amusement. My breath got caught in my throat at the mere sight. His age was evident. He was all man, that much was sure. Sure, he wasn't a fresh youth, but he definitely wasn't old. Mature was a better phrase. Well, aged was better. He looked pristine. Even in 10 years, I imagine he still looked that way. But men had the luxury to mature, whereas women just expired, apparently. The thought had always sickened me. There were beautifully aged women who wore their white hair like crowns, but I evidently wasn't one of those women. My crown was made out of eroding poison. And your name? He smiled widely.
Carrick.
Hello, okay, Mr. Carrick. Carrick. I tested his name absentmindedly. He flashed me a toothy grin, watching my lips as I said it.
It certainly sounds better when you say it.
Oh my god, I'm already melting in my chair. I shook my head, blood rushing to my cheeks. Was there something I could get you?
I'd like to buy whatever that gentleman was going to, as well as my usual. It's the least I can do, since I made you lose some business.
You know, it's fine. You helped me out in a tough situation. I just realized bro got some chest hair. Oh, that's kind of you, but you don't have to. It's no trouble. His coin is worth nothing to me.
Perhaps mine will have more value?
A cheeky smile graced his features. I nodded, smiling, looking down at my hands on the counter.
Actually, I'm going to browse for a bit. If you could get me those other two things, I'd appreciate it.
No problem. The rock polish, right? That's what you usually get? His eyebrows rose.
You remembered. You're good at your job.
Oh, you know, I try. Gotta have some good customer service. I waved off his compliment as well as him. Luckily, he gave me some time to recover from his overwhelming presence. I'd always found him a fine-looking man, but seeing him so close, watching him speak and smile at me, saying such kind things, it made me feel like a teenager. He's simply gorgeous, almost an ethereal beauty, much like a painting or a statue carved from stone. Carrick. He's been a regular for at least a year. He suddenly appeared one day, around the time they start building the new cathedral across the way. Maybe he worked in the chantry. He didn't really look like the type, but who was I to say? Oddly though, I don't think I've ever seen him shop during the day. Perhaps his job kept him busy while the sun was up. What kind of job would someone like him have? I suppose I could ask him, though every time I think about talking to him, I get so nervous. He's too enticing. Couldn't be a priest, because if so, he'd make many a sinner. Maybe he built the cathedral. He certainly had the muscles for it. I wish I had seen him build it, watching his muscles tense, drip with sweat, glowing in the hot afternoon sun, breathing heavily, drinking water as it dripped down his body. My God, are we thirsty for this man? And I understand it. I love these thoughts. I watched as he poked and prodded some of the bottles around the room, practically glided as he moved. His hair was luxurious, his eyes a deep shade of red, and he had near perfect skin. He was a marvel. How could someone like him ever call me lovely? Perhaps he was just being nice. If I was even 10 years younger, I'd have caught his eye. My body was better. No sagging underarms, no bags under my eyes, no gray hairs. If only he could have seen me then. It was a shame. Time was truly a curse, at least when you were a woman. Perhaps it was nice to pretend his nice words had real meaning. The only men who take a fancy to me now were drunkards and the desperate. How long had it been since I'd been with a man? It felt like decades, even if maybe only a couple of years had passed. Even so, the relationships were short-lived. I'd always preferred my work, my own company over something so shallow. Sex was serviceable, felt good while it lasted, but it was never very long. Ended right I was feeling really good. Probably because the proper pounding happened right as he was about to come. Oh my God, okay. I could make myself come much harder with much less headache. Perhaps Carrick was beautiful, but beautiful didn't equate to a skillful lover. Perhaps he could be in my late night fantasies, however. I ended up sulking so much, I hadn't seen Carrick return initially. His eyes knitted together in concern.
I know it isn't my business, but I apologize on behalf of that bastard. I can't stop thinking about it.
No, please, you don't have to. I really am fine. He didn't look convinced, however. Hell, even I didn't buy it. But I had to be fine. I had to believe it somehow. I couldn't let any of what he said get to me. I couldn't listen to anyone when it came to how I felt about myself. That was a recipe for certain disaster. I suppose he said it quite harshly, but there was truth to what he said. Carrot gave me a dumbfounded look. Maybe he was young, but I didn't think that was that hard of a concept to grasp. I guess I am a good deal older than you. I'm sure one day you'll understand though. Or maybe you never will because you're drop-dead gorgeous and a man. Woman my age, there's a certain set of things we're expected to do. And of those, being married and having children are two I have yet to engage with. There's a good chance I won't experience either. He stared at me astonished. I probably should have let it go. I argued my stance on this far too many times with far too many people. He wouldn't understand, and I didn't need to explain myself. Even so, I did. I suppose it had come naturally to me at that point. I do realize how strange it is for me to be a woman with her own business. People wonder if I'm depressed or lonely. I honestly don't think so. The happiest day of my life was when the shop opened. I was finally able to put my magic to good use and sell potions that help people. I realized only then what I was doing. I said my piece. He didn't care. Time to change the subject and pretend that hadn't happened. Oh, your potions. I'm sorry. Let me get that for you.
Wait.
And I did. Like I was being compelled to.
You.
Me?
You don't have to do anything.
Now it was my turn to be confused. I said I'd get you those items. I got distracted. I guess I'm getting tired. The older I get, the earlier to bed I go.
Why do you speak as though you were on death's door?
The words lost me. I didn't know how to respond. Why did I? I mean, I guess I'm not elderly, but I'm not the young woman I was when I opened this place. I even have gray hair now. See? Carrick didn't even look. He was still looking at me like I smashed his polish onto the floor.
Is that why?
Why what?
Why you've been so down?
My silence must have been his answer.
Look, if I may say so, I think that's complete and utter bullshit.
I looked around, feeling uncomfortable once again. Had I upset him? Where did I place that broom?
You don't need to have kids or get married. You run one of the most successful shops in town.
Oh, we're that accomplished.
You're thoughtful and hardworking. And, if I may be so bold, a fine woman.
I felt my throat tighten. I had to cough and wipe my nose to get rid of the forming tears. His words cut deep. Please, you don't have to say any of this. I am not one to delude myself. I'm a practical person. You don't need to appeal to my emotions or anything.
Please don't listen to that lowly fool. Or anyone. You must know your worth.
My stomach flipped involuntarily at his tone. His words were so warm. They resonated somewhere deep within me. A tear slipped down my cheek and onto the counter below. I could only touch it, shocked, deeply touched, more than I realized, like he'd spoken to a part of me that was out of my reach. I moved towards the door, going to lock it. not letting myself stand in place sobbing in front of a stranger. I could tell by the way the sky looked that it was near closing time. I didn't care if I closed earlier than usual today. Carrick was behind me, preparing to leave. Or at least, that's what I thought. My apologies. You can say if you'd like. I just want to get a start on closing. I don't want anyone else to walk in.
So, it's alright if I stay?
I nodded. Yeah, I don't mind. Honestly, it was good to have him there in case that drunkard decided he wanted to come back for round 2. Let me check you out. We made our way back to the counter. I finally retrieved the rock polish and the blue tonic. Carrick set down a common healing potion. Will this be all? I asked, going through the normal sequence of questioning without thinking. He nodded, just watching me. It'll be 6 silvers. He went to retrieve his pouch and set the silver onto the counter. What is this rock polish for, anyway? Do you work at the cathedral across the way? He looked like he hadn't expected that. He was so taken aback. I almost regretted asking in the first place. Did he think me weird for asking?
You could say that. I spend a lot of time there.
Is he? I think I have my suspicions. Hold on, let me see how this plays out. Did you help build it?
No, well, the truth of the matter is that it's complicated.
A mysterious one. Was he involved in some shady business? That would explain the dark aura and the fact he was so muscular. Maybe he was a hitman or involved in underground criminal organizations. Maybe he was the devil himself. He certainly had to look for it.
The shop's closed now, right?
I nodded.
Does that mean I can speak to you as a person, rather than a shopkeeper?
I could only chuckle of that, unsure of what he meant. What is it that you want to say to me that you can't say to a shopkeeper?
At the risk of making you uncomfortable, I feel it's best I be honest with you. Is that okay? If you don't like what I have to say, I'll leave. And I won't bother you any further. If you wish it so, I won't even shop here anymore.
As he continued, a heaviness formed in my chest. Just what was he talking about? Was he sent here to kill me? Had I done bad business?
So can I tell you?
Yeah. You can. What do you want to tell me? It seems important. My anxiety only grew as he looked around, looking for a way to say what he was trying to. Was it that bad? The waiting was sure to kill me. Finally, he spoke. Slow at first.
I lied before.
About? I must have asked with my eyes.
I already knew your name. It is lovely. Just like you.
Flirting after hours, sir?
That part was true.
That was it? He lied about not knowing my name? That was certainly strange, but it wasn't anything to make such a fuss about.
The truth is, I know a lot about you. More than you think I do.
That stopped me in my tracks.
I've watched you for a while.
What?
Just as you worked.
Because you spend so much of your time at the cathedral? I asked, hoping that was it. Hoping even more that he wouldn't lie about it either.
Yes, precisely. I also have made it a habit to visit here more. To see you.
Why? I asked stupidly.
Because I'm drawn to you. I have been for years.
Years? Years? How many?
3 years. The same amount of time since the cathedral was built.
Bro's been pining for 3 years? This. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? It was a dangerous question. With an answer I don't think I was prepared to hear. Even so, it was better to know. Why? He bit his lip.
Is it not obvious?
He smiled wryly.
Maybe you just want to hear me say it.
Yeah, go ahead. I nodded. That wasn't false. I didn't want to misinterpret this. Best I hear it directly from the source.
I'm telling you this because I want you to be mine. And more than that, I want to be yours.
What difference was there between being his or being mine? More importantly, had he said what I thought he just said?
It's honestly disheartening to see you so doubtful. Even though I'm telling you this, clear as day, you can't believe it.
I stopped myself. I could only blink as he continued to speak.
Is my longing for you that hard to believe? What happened to break your confidence so?
I dropped my head. Truthfully, I didn't know. There wasn't a singular instance that turned me from bright-eyed, bold girl into a gray-haired, tinted woman. Perhaps it was the natural order of things. I just grew up.
But I've only known you for 3 years. Are you truly a different woman?
I thought back. No, I wasn't. But with every year, watching the amounts of people who come to settle in the village, the refugees flooding the cathedral, I watched women become brides and mothers in the same year. I never really wanted for those things, at least not to the extent others had. I never sought them out, but being looked at differently, being compared to them, and how different my life was to theirs. I felt like I was doing everything in my life all wrong, like my very existence was an outlier, a mistake, something that should have never come to me. Even though this was the life I cried, sweated, and prayed for, I couldn't find joy in it the way I once had, not when I shared it alone. I don't know the answer to that, Carrick. All I know is that I haven't felt comfortable in my own skin in a long time. He watched me with pity. It hurt. I disappointed him. But he wasn't alone. I was disappointed in myself. How had I let the opinions of others corrode me so? I'm sorry. The woman you pined for doesn't exist anymore. She may never again. Carrick shook his head. I'm sure he was in denial, as absurd as that was, but what I said was true. I said it before. I'm practical. I might not like it, but that is the way of things. I don't make these rules. I just have to live by them.
Nothing has changed. Your essence, it's the same. It's just dulled.
My essence. What did he mean? I needn't ask. It was written all over my face.
I've noticed that your soul has changed. I've watched it waver like the flame of a long-burning candle. But it isn't too late. It can be remedied.
How exactly? Even when all I could think was how absurd this all was, I still kept bringing myself to inquire further.
I honestly don't know. Maybe it's foolish, but I thought maybe if I told you, you'd be able to find out for yourself. You're very intelligent. If you don't know now, you will. But that is the main thing I wanted to tell you. I know it's hard, but your core, the main part of your soul, is still there. It's just being dimmed. You have to find the spark to ignite it again. It may feel hopeless now, but it's not permanent. You just have to be patient with yourself and make peace with the changing of the seasons.
That made it click. Even when I lacked all the critical information, the intricacies behind the words he spoke, I still managed to feel relief. The weight in my chest lifted ever so slightly. Maybe it was hard to believe he could see my soul. Perhaps it was figurative, but there is truth to it. I've been so upset by such minor things, because it added to a truth about myself that I was starting to believe, adhering to a reality that wasn't my own. This time, no tears fell, but I felt a deep ache in my body. My nerves were on fire. An involuntary smile snuck its way onto my face.
There she is.
He said, almost a whisper, matching my own smile. He looked at me like I'd come down from the celestial realm.
I suppose my work here is done. You're remarkable. You struggle so much, mostly alone. And yet you don't let it harden you. You're still as fiery, as passionate about your work, and your effect on the people around you as I imagine you always had. You truly inspire me.
Carrick, why are you being so kind? It hurts.
You need to hear it. And if you're still willing to listen, I could tell you more. Remind you of what you've forgotten.
I could only nod, still not understanding, but willing to listen. I took a seat onto the counter, resting my aching feet and ankles. He watched me all the way, moving his hand closer once I was sat, but not quite touching. I could tell he debated touching me, like I burned him if he did. Filled with newfound boldness, I set my hand on his. He looked at me surprised, but didn't address it, following through with what he was going to say instead. I listened intently.
I was drawn to you from the moment I saw you. Of course, it wasn't love like in the poems, but rather fascination, like the answer to a question that plagues the masses. You were my unanswered question, and so I watched and learned much about you. And watching you is easy, of course. You're an enchanting woman.
Can you not feel the souls of others? Is it just mine? I decided to ask, almost humoring him. I couldn't say I believed in it, but I wanted to hear what he'd say.
I can feel others, anyone who I choose to. That drunkard was almost tainted and rotten.
I don't know if I can believe that. He just seems sad. I don't think he's broken or anything, just in a bad place, misguided.
That's a wonderful trait of yours. And you're not wrong. He can change. But it means he'd have to want to change. And so many don't. Even after the horrible things he said to you, you show him so much courtesy and respect.
I shrug. Of all things. I suppose it was just my nature. I didn't like the bastard. It was true. But that didn't mean he was damned.
We all see our ugliest sides. and we let them become who we are, instead of fighting against them.
I felt guilty, as clearly I too was susceptible to it. What's your ugly side, Carrot? He paused, chewing over his response for a moment.
I'm obsessed.
Obsessed? With? But I already knew the answer.
With a question. Would you give me the time of day?
That was the question. Would I give him the time of day? I can't say. I don't know what that would entail. For me. For us.
Only as much as you were willing to give.
I just know so little. What I do know is good, but it makes me worry there's plenty you're hiding. And I don't know if I like the ugly side of you.
I believe I could help remedy that.
How so? I always figured those are the kinds of things you experience over time.
Now, before I do what I'm about to, I need you to promise me that you'll try to stay calm.
I thought for a moment, contemplating once again if I wanted to know. Ultimately, I felt like we'd come this far. I wanted to give him a chance. I promise I'll try. Yeah, yes! It was silent, almost deafeningly so. I watched in pure shock as horns sprouted from his head, wings sprung from his back. His body swelled in size. He got bigger? His shirt had given way to his chest growing, the garment splitting and falling to the floor between us. Along with that, his boots split to pieces, and in place were taloned feet. Before long, he just stood in his new form, towering over me even more than he had before. Thank you for the look, but I'm kind of thinking, if he wants to transform back, does he have a spare set of clothes? I sat in awe, paralyzed as I studied him, not sure what I felt, other than an ever-present feeling of sudden arousal. It only added to my ever-growing confusion. We're monster fuckers, that's what it is. He looked terrified.
Are you all right? Did I scare you?
Oh, wait, we seeing that too, right? The happy trail, this kind of, yeah, okay. His monster cock is just struggling at this moment. I shook my head slowly. Not scared. I didn't say what I was feeling, because the reality wasn't something I felt I should be admitting to at that moment.
Do I look weird?
I shook my head. By normal standards, sure, but to me, he was still the same alluring man. His presence had somehow reached a level I hadn't thought of. He was more than a painting or a statue. He was in a league of his own. He was by all definitions a masterpiece. It was many more moments before either one of us made a sound. Surprisingly, I was the first to break the silence, speaking a truth I denied myself before, in fear. A fear that didn't come natural to me, that had come from feeling rejected by everyone around me. Carrick hadn't though, and so I spoke the truth. I casted away my shock. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. His face reddened at that. He smiled softly, unable to form a sentence, so I did it for him. Just, what are you exactly?
Demon?
Okay.
That's what your people would call me. However, my experiences are mostly human. I eat, I sleep. I have fears and I have desires. But I am also only able to be when the sun is gone.
Is that why I never saw him during the day? He was nocturnal.
Those guardians built atop the cathedral. Those stone creatures. That's what I am during the day.
I thought so! Yeah, I'm that smart. Okay, he's kind of like a gargoyle-like creature. Bro, gosh, yeah, the whole carved in stone thing, everything connects together. It makes sense. A gargoyle, you mean? He nodded.
The human word, yes.
Why show this form to me? I could have screamed, or sent a mob after you. Why take that risk? The answer came to him easily.
I knew you wouldn't. And I was right. More importantly, I showed you because it's something you must know if you're to decide whether or not you want me to be yours.
The more he spoke about the prospect of him being mine, it became ever so slightly real. By be yours, do you mean as a friend or... Please, be for real. Be for real in this moment. I had to force the words out, the fear of rejection threatening to stop me. As a lover. I hated to even say it. If it was the former, how could I look myself in the mirror? I had to break it more just to avoid that reality. I hated myself for feeling that way. After I had just decided to cast my fear aside, I suppose knowing the source didn't necessarily mean it solved the problem.
I've never thought of friends the way I think of you.
My heart swelled, my stomach fluttered. My palms sweat so much that my hands started to slip on the counter below me. I was made more aware of my body in his presence as he stood dangerously close. His eyes were even more intense in this form, especially when he spoke such desires into existence. A shadow was cast over me by his sheer presence. The clock was ticking. He was wanting the answer he obsessed over. But could I give it to him? Yes? Yeah. Or would my body speak for me, and I grow to regret my decision later? The truth of the matter was, I was already attracted to Carrick, but seeing this side of him only added to it. It was easy enough to say what he wanted to hear, when all I wanted was to feel the form that stood before me flush against my own, so much smaller in comparison. To know what he smelt like, felt like, tasted like. I hadn't thought I was ever a prospect for someone like him, even more so now that I knew what he truly was. Even now, I still couldn't wrap my head around it, but I was practical. He was here before me saying his intentions. I could ask anything I wanted to know right now. I didn't need to wrap my head around it when I could explore him for myself, climb him like a tree. Like I had when I mixed ingredients in a potion. I had to see what worked. I had to run a shop for years to truly understand the intricacies that came with being a business owner. I had to dig my hands into the earth in order to make sense of reality when it began to slip. Carrick, tell me, what is it about me, physically, that you're drawn to? His demeanor shifted, his smirk finally returning, as he leaned closer to me, still not quite touching me.
Could I show you instead?
Show me? Should I? Or would I be doing myself harm? Enough. Thoughts don't belong here. They are paralyzing. They are counterintuitive and an experiment. Results vary. Then think over it later. Please do. That was all the permission he needed. His hand rose, now easily double the size it was before, and I almost lost my nerve. Two of his fingers alone were larger than half the men's dicks I've been with. Dear God. It made me wonder, what did that mean for his... Yeah. I had to know. His hand hovered for a moment before his fingers found their way into my hair, pushing the strands behind my ear, far more gentle than I thought possible for someone who looked like him.
Your hair.
He looked at me for a moment, for the first time about to see the subject of his desire so close. His hand moved to my cheek, a thumb tracing my cheekbone.
Your eyes.
The warmth of his palm, of his thumb, trailed its way down my face, only stopping when it reached my lips. That alone sent an electric shock through my body.
And especially your lips.
He stood watching me watch him as he slowly began, parting them just enough so he could run his thumb across the length of my bottom lip. His expression changed from something adoring to something more sedated, his eyes practically dilating. We both knew what was to come next at that moment. Words were no longer our friends. We spoke plenty. Now it was time to act. I opened my mouth to trace my tongue along his thumb, wrapping my lips around it in order to properly taste it. I practically drooled at the sensation. It tasted of nothing but my own saliva, and still I was already going lightheaded. I peeked out of one eye to see his expression. His eyes were glazed over as he watched me.
Why does that feel so good?
I couldn't answer him, nor would I. I was determined not to say another word unless it was screaming his name. I spread my legs as I continued sucking, begging him to fill the space in any way he saw fit. I hope he wouldn't lose his nerve. He said all the right things. Now to see if he could put it into action. He wanted me, right? He watched me. He waited this long to say anything. Had he touched himself to the thought of me? How much had he envisioned this moment? I wanted to ask him all those things, but there would be time to speak again. Luckily, he stood closer, removing his thumb from my mouth. A trail of spit hung between them for a second. He leaned in close. It was only when he stood before me that his nerves seemed to falter.
Can I kiss you?
You can do more than that. Or perhaps not. He only looked like he had. He almost looked like a young man at that moment, had he not known the touch of another. I only answered by bringing my hands to his face and pulling him to my hungry lips. There was one clear way to find out. Regardless of his history, I was experienced enough for the two of us. Perhaps I can train him into a suitable lover. That thought excited me. He groaned against me. His lips were warm and plump. It was uncomfortably slow, as he gently kissed me. It was wonderful, but wasn't enough. I gave him my tongue, which he met with his own deliciously. He had the makeup of a wonderful lover, if his kiss was anything to go off of. He'd definitely been kissed before, and I found it hard to imagine anyone getting to this point with him and not falling under his spell. He tasted like water from a fresh, cool spring. It had been so long since I'd been kissed, but I hadn't forgot the basics. He'd gone slow enough, and I had ample time to remember the little things that made men fall to their knees. I breathed into him, tangling my fingers into his long, silky hair. Our lips worked away at each other, moving between soft, loving kisses to famished tongues satiating the other. I moaned into his mouth as he started to untie the binding on my dress. I practically heard the celebratory sound of trumpets as he leisurely undid them without so much as even looking. His kiss hadn't suffered either. The theory of him never having been with any previous lovers before was eroding away with every passing minute. I melted into our kiss. His tongue danced with mine, exploring every corner of my mouth thoroughly. This sensation was equal parts plenty and not enough. Carrick only broke away to move the dress off my shoulders and down to my waist. Studying my figure, I did what I could not to tense up, but he had no such reservations. He never said much. His blushing cheeks, hazy eyes, and dangerously sizable bulge were indicator enough. I shivered in the cool air as my nipples hardened. He was awestruck, just watching shamelessly. I found his expression cute and rewarded him by giving him a show. I ran my hand, or rather my fingers up purposely, over my navel to my chest bone. I watched his eyes follow my hand. I cupped one of my breasts, giving it a gentle squeeze, before tracing my fingers over my hardened nipple. Dear God, YouTube, please accept this video. I hope YouTube will accept this, right? This is fine, right? So hard, they felt good by my own touch, though I imagine nothing compared to his. It was as if I was signaling to a wild beast. He closed the distance between us in mere moments. His hands roamed freely over my body, tracing the curves of my breasts, teasing my nipples into somehow even more hardened peaks. I squeaked at the sensation. I'd grown quite sensitive to another's touch in this time. I suppose that boded well. I couldn't decide if I was embarrassed or impressed by how riled up I was already. So when his mouth made its way from my lips to my cheek to my chin, to my neck and all the way down to that very same nipple, I ended up throwing my head back. I hissed at the feeling of his tongue circling it, flicking it, his lips, and when he felt bold enough, teeth grabbing on and pulling to send me into a fit. My hips rolled into him, delightful by what I felt, a dampness through his pants. Something I already guessed was more than I ever experienced, but I wasn't afraid. What will you do with me, Carrick? Can you feel in my soul how much I want you in this moment? His large hands gripped my thighs, lifting me effortlessly. I scooped in surprise, giggling to ensure he hadn't done anything wrong. His mouth left my breast in favor of smirking at me, where I was wrapped within his arms. I'd always thought of myself as quite sturdy. It would have been an effort for the average individual to lift my toes off the ground, let alone hold me up as if I were a sack of flour rather than a full-grown woman. I felt incredibly delicate and free in his grasp.
Is this okay? I wanted to take this to your bedroom.
I touched his face, nodding.
Are you nervous?
I shook my head. A lie. But I wasn't giving into any of that. I wasn't going to give him a single reason to deny me this.
I have tried to hold myself back, but once we get in there, I can't promise to only be a gentleman.
Bro, do whatever the hell you want. That was music to my ears. I wanted nothing more than to be rid of my dress that had become a skirt. I tugged at it.
I'll get you out of that. Don't worry.
I kissed him as a thank you. He moaned without reservation. The kiss was ultimately one step up from a peck, and yet he still looked intoxicated.
I love your lips.
I kissed him again, slowly this time, enough to see stars. He was growing more and more eager. his lips swollen, body tightening against me, his cock almost touching beneath my thighs from up in his hold.
Your bedroom? Unless you'd rather we... out here.
I mean, the windows are still open. If someone wants a show, they might get a show. I pointed over my shoulder. The shop was small. He'll be able to find it easily. And thankfully, he did.
It's gorgeous in here.
He was sweet. I smiled.
You've been awfully quiet.
I breathed out a laugh. I'm sorry. I'm worried if I talk too much, it would put a damper on this whole thing. He knitted his eyebrows together.
How exactly?
I tend to ramble when I'm nervous, or apologize excessively. It's better I show you how I feel, rather than tell you. You can tell already, can't you? You can feel it in my soul.
I mean, I can, but I want to listen to anything you have to say. You can tell me anything.
It felt silly, almost guilty for doing so. I'd overcorrected in fear of backing out. I'm scared. I'll give in to my defeatist thoughts.
I understand. But it's you I desire. I knew the worst of what your soul had to say already. You're not going to scare me away so easily.
I suppose. Men I've been with in the past would get bothered by me speaking during such times. A dark look overtook his expression.
Those were boys you were with before. I told you before, hadn't I?
He smirked devilishly.
I am no boy.
You sure as hell not. A wave of relief and even more intense craving took over me. I would only be blessed so many times in my life. And if there were a demon here to prey on my weak will and drain me dry, then I have to let him. Nothing was going to keep me from making him mine, even if just for tonight. I need these off, Carrick. I pointed to his pants. My dress too.
Your wish is my command.
He set me down onto the bed, bending down to remove the dress while checking my expression the entire time. Candlelight flickered off his alabaster skin. Soon I was freed and lay bare before him. Instead of doing what I expected him to do, he knelt down.
May I?
The answer is always yes, Carrick. I said almost impatiently, feeling the air of my womanhood waiting for it to be licked, sucked, filled, anything.
What about anticipation? I want to taste you. I've dreamt about it.
Usually idle conversation in intimate settings was a sure way to kill the mood. But the combination of Carrick's voice and his concern, expressing his desire so openly, made me feel like I've never felt before. I was sure that was a sign of things to come. Please.
Since you said it so sweetly.
Carrick didn't waste another moment, his hot breath right at my entrance, running a tongue up the entirety of it to sample. His wings folded as he concentrated. He groaned, rolling his eyes back.
Oh, you taste like ambrosia.
I could only blink, feeling myself sodden just at the sound of him. His tongue had been quite large in my mouth. I hadn't anticipated how it would feel elsewhere, but it was nothing short of heavenly. It started slow, much like our kiss before, testing what would make me squirm the most. He kissed it sweetly, before jetting his tongue in and familiarizing himself with my taste. Thankfully, he was erasing all my thoughts of what I may breathe smelt like, how I must have tasted, what I looked like. All I could think about was how wonderful he looked between my legs. I did what I could not to compress his head between my thighs, as he sped up his licking and his lips dragged across my own.
You can wrap your legs around me. I won't suffocate.
I hesitated for a moment.
If I do, there's no better way
Bro, get
I'd
out
want
of
to
here! His permission was all I needed. He sped up, circling his tongue inside of me. What only helped was the sounds he made as he drank me up. It was as if he was eating a peach given to him from the garden of the gods themselves. I can only hope I tasted just as sweet. Bro, I can't do all these moanings, man. It only made him breathe harder. He squeezed my thigh affectionately, spurring me on. I tried to speak, but was interrupted by another jet of his tongue deep inside me. I ended up moaning for him, uncaring about volume, or how it must have sounded. I received no complaint. His tongue found my clit, stimulating it over and over again, almost paralyzing me with each new wave of pleasure. Just like everything else on him, his tongue was also massive, and was doing the work of at least 3 normal tongues. It was already so good, and we hadn't even gotten to the main course yet. What started as something of a spectacle, slow and sensual, had become visceral and animalistic over time. As I slammed my hips down onto his face, he gripped my thighs tightly, helped me move with little effort. I'm so close. Am I going to come already? So fast? My hands clenched my bed sheets, body jolting with a scream for dear life as I came. The pleasure hadn't stopped there as Carrick lapped up all I'd given him. I rubbed his scalp as he continued to murmur moans and prayers into my folds. I could only breathe, my chest heaving, body tingling, shaking, sweating, coating my body. Carrick eventually pulled away, his mouth wet as he licked away at his lip, savoring every drop. He looked possessed.
My dreams didn't hold a candle to this. Do you need a break?
No. I shook my head, despite so very much needing a break, but seeing him like that, after he'd given me quite possibly the greatest orgasm of my life, I couldn't let it into here just yet. I need to feel more of you. He tossed his hair back in one motion, standing up, shedding his pants finally, his wings spread open. Monster cock! His cock sprung out of the constraints in such a way that I was astonished they had it ripped off before. It bounced, the pre-cum glistening in the moonlight. He looked unreal. I had to swallow. I don't think my mouth could fit over so much as the tip. It wouldn't stop me from trying to, however. There he stood rock hard, like an erotic statue, even though I wanted to taste it for myself. What I wanted more was to feel it inside of me. Can I take a screenshot of that shit too? Because... In the next moment, he grabbed my legs, dragging me to the end of the bed. He dropped over me to kiss me, tasting the remnants of myself on him. It surprised me how little it bothered me. It was like I was tasting our own essence. His cock touched my moist pussy, sending wonderful waves of pleasure up my spine. He tensed against me. Don't hold yourself back. Dear God, he's gonna rip us in half!
I don't want to hurt you.
I don't mind a little pain. I need you to try. I have to feel you for myself. He swallowed, staring at me in awe. With a look of conviction, he grabbed my legs again, lifting me against him like he had before, only this time with both of us naked. I was straddling his dick, delighted by its warmth as it reached all the way past my ass. Dear God, how big is this man? He's gonna wreck our guts. Oh my God. Dear God. This wasn't going to be any small feat, but I'm sure even his head alone would be enough. It was a matter of if I could sufficiently return the favor. I rolled my hips down on him as he held me, hands first beneath my thighs before reaching under my ass to properly glide against himself. The movement was easy and only became more so. The view was wonderful. His hulking shoulders flexed as they carried me, and I felt every square inch of his girth beneath me. I was almost dripping, feeling our combined wetness all between my legs. With time, he spread my ass, squeezing and teasing, prodding his length near my entrance. I dropped my head, equally loving and hating the buildup.
Oh, I could come just like this.
He says, making me press a hand to my mouth, furiously blushing despite myself.
I'm dying to be inside of you.
What are you waiting for? I didn't let him answer. I need you inside me as well. I cringe as I said it.
You're precious. Try again. This time with me.
Bro, don't make me say it again. I squeezed my eyes shut in embarrassment. It was hard to maintain this level of confidence for so long. His hand reached for my entrance, alongside his throbbing cock just below it. My eyes shot open.
Well, what do you want, my goddess?
I need you to fuck me, Carrot. I need you to stop talking, stop teasing, and start fucking me senselessly. He only grinned, lifting my ass up and slipping into me, slowly, painfully slowly, deliciously slowly, maddening slowly. My head dove into his shoulder.
Tell me if it's too much. Oh, we'll take as long as you need.
It's good. Just been a while.
Oh, you're so tight. Oh, I don't know if I'll make it.
Bro.
At this rate.
He closed his eyes, savoring how I felt around him. I sat back, taking another inch. Don't you dare. His eyebrows shot up, eyes widening in delight.
Is that a command?
You didn't wait all this time just to give in so soon, did you? He only responded with another inch. The pressure in my hips was apparent. I couldn't move with every inch after the 6. How much is left? Bro, how big is that? I gulped.
You're over halfway. This is more than enough for me.
Halfway? Dear God.
Don't push yourself.
I shussed him, swallowing another inch in retort. He hissed.
Fuck. I want to move. Please.
Oh, dear God.
Let me move.
No, don't. We're not done yet. He blinked at me, licking his lips. Good boy. His face turned a bright crimson. He gripped me tighter as if bracing himself. Even despite saying he was no boy, he sure seemed to like it when I called him that. I reached down to feel for the remainder of his cock. It was as thick as it was long. I could only equate it to the size of an arm. No mortal man could live with such a thing. The blood rushing alone would kill them. Carrick looked tortured, but nowhere near losing strength. I think he can move, just a little. Though I granted him permission, he hesitated a moment more, before pulling out a bit and driving it right back inside me in a test motion. I tensed to the feeling of having every inch of my insides press against his member. However, it felt good. Dangerously so. My knees quivered.
You feel so much better than I imagined to. Fuck.
I reached up for a horn to better steady myself. He twitched at the touch, and I retracted in the same moment, fearing I'd upset him.
Be careful. Those are sensitive.
He said in a husky warning. I gave him a smug look. Stroking the length of one with my hand, as he continued to move inside me. Just the look of him was enough to make movement easier.
You're so wet.
I think that's you.
Oh, it's definitely me.
He gave me a kiss, first one, then two, before settling on kissing me fully as he focused on thrusting into me. For a moment, it was just glued lips, as he located where I was most enjoying. He slipped out once, completely, before plunging in again. My knees buckled around him as he did so. He was being naughty now. I broke our kiss to tap his nose, gently scolding. Stroking his horn with much more vigor, the grooves felt wonderful against the muscles of my palm. Don't stop. I groaned as he slipped deeper into me, giving me a moment to adjust to the new length before continuing. It was a sensation I was never going to forget. The resounding symphony of our moans, sighs, and the sound of wet sex as we fully indulged in one another for the first time was a wonderful sound. The smell of sex clung into the air. It all worked to ground me in the moment. At least I ascend. My body moved all on its own, and before I knew it, I had successfully taken him all in. Girl, how long is that? It was only then did he have the courage to plunge into me at the strength I knew he'd been holding back. It nearly knocked all the wind out of me.
Shit, sorry.
I reached for his face, looking him in the eye as I spoke. That. I need more of that.
Are you sure?
I'm sure I can take it. Just give me the chance. I won't break like your other little girlfriends. Carrick only smirked, shaking his head.
I have no use for young women. Never have.
I draped my arms around his neck. Are you saying I'm your first older woman? I cooed.
The first in this lifetime. And if you'll have me, my last.
I was taken aback by that. What did he mean exactly? Though asking such questions felt unnecessary with him completely inside of me. By the time he moved again, I'd forgotten all about the specifics. If this was his means to shut me up from forever asking again, I welcome it. We both had full lives before one another, but it was all about us now, in this moment. Carrick found a wonderful rhythm as he groped and squeezed my ass, spreading me open to better take his cock. My body bounced onto it, growing accustomed to the sensations. As I reached euphoria, the likes in which I'd never known before.
Oh, you really can take it. Oh, you're incredible. Everything about you drives me mad.
He growled into my neck, suckling and nibbling. I moved myself even more. The position is good, but it isn't enough.
Tell me what you want. As long as I can stay inside of you.
The prospect of him readjusting seemed like torture to him. Too bad for him. I was quite fond of the expression. As a result, I lifted myself off of him. A great deal of our combined fluids dripped onto our legs as he exited me. We groaned in sadness and pleasure at the sensation.
We've made a mess.
I'm not done with you yet.
I'd hope not.
Lay me down and take me.
Yes, madam.
I gripped onto both of his horns then. He gasped, whimpering ever so slightly. What did I say about calling me madam?
I couldn't be more enchanted by you.
Was his only response. You want back inside of me? You better hurry lest I dry out.
I won't let that happen.
He dropped me down onto my back. He watched as my body jiggled. He hovered over top of me, rewarding me with a series of wild kisses. My legs wrapped around him, slightly begging to feel him again.
Quite impatient, aren't you?
Carrick, why must you play these games?
This is no game to me. I can't help but study you, even now. Everything you do captivates me. How does someone as wonderful as you exist?
I couldn't answer, but I could ask him much the same.
You're self-made as well, without interference of an angel or god. I'd have mistaken you for an angel. Your soul bleeds of it.
Carrick, please.
I'm denying you pleasure. My apologies. I'll make it up to you, my lady. I promise.
He sat up, reaching for his dick. Seeing his full length before me, I could hardly believe I managed to withstand a portion of it, let alone the whole thing. He went to say something, but stopped himself. I giggled at that. He wanted to speak more. We have ample time once this was over, but it was time to finish what we started. I needed to come to completion by his hand. There is nothing in the world I wanted more in that moment. In one smooth, mind-numbing, euphoric motion, he sheathed his entire length into my pussy, and I held him there to adjust. He was conscious not to place much of his weight on me, opting to stand on the edge of the bed so I could spread more effectively.
Oh, that's it. You're so good. You took it all like it was nothing.
It certainly wasn't nothing. I was just now starting to relax around it. He noticed just as well. He bared his teeth at the sensation. Patience. I ordered and he nodded.
I've waited this long. I can endure.
I wonder how long he could hold out for exactly. I have to experiment and see how far I could push the limit. If I remember correctly, there were some aphrodisiac elixirs that would do a world of good when things inevitably dulled. though the prospect of meeting anything in addition to the man before me was almost a non-starter. For him, however,
how long will you make me wait? You're quite cruel when you want to be.
don't move. Allow me. He could only nod, a loss for words, as I pushed against him and adjusted myself onto his length as if he were nothing more than a tool to be used. He stared down at me, growing increasingly more aroused while I was also growing equally impatient.
You are perfection, my lady. Every inch of you. Please allow me to show you how much I crave you.
I pushed until my hips moved on their own. I could easily have finished myself just like this, but I needed more. I needed him to do as he promised. Carrick, move. I need to come. He thrusted before I had gotten the words out. It felt much better, much more than what I was capable of. I watched as his statuesque, monstrous form dominated me completely. There was no mercy. I thoroughly teased him.
Oh, I wish I was stronger. Oh, I'd let you use me as you please. Oh, alas, I'm not strong enough to withstand. I have to feel you for myself.
It's okay, my sweet. Make it up to me. I told him as easily as breathing. The pressure somehow increased. The sounds of our slapping skin and tangle of moans echoed all throughout the stop. Soon, what were just moans were now screams, as wave after wave after wave of perfect pleasure hit me right in the spot I needed it most. Sweat shone off his body in a perfect layer, making him look even prettier than before. He looked worn and messy, all used up.
I can't hold out. I'm sorry. I need to. Can I finish inside?
Sure, man. Do they have birth control this time?
I'm going mad. I can't see straight.
His words were staggered as he spoke through a salivated mouth. Dear God. How much is this man gonna come though? Wait a minute. Are we talking like belly bulge like you see in hentais, or how are we doing this? I nodded.
My lady, can I? Your orders, please.
Go ahead, man. Oh my God, okay. The thrust increased to a speed I was sure was going to break my bed off its hinges. Oh my God. I am not handling this properly at all. More surprisingly, it didn't break me. Though with how it felt, I wouldn't have minded if it had done either. Okay. Harder, deeper. I screamed as a flash of pure white light hit me, even though my eyes had closed. He slammed his hips one final time into me, saying as he clutched my knees. I felt a pool of hot seafood in my stomach, pussy, before spilling onto the bed below us.
Fuck.
He cursed, shaking along with me as he continued to fill me. It was silent as we both recovered from our combined orgasm. I nearly forgot where I was. It wasn't until Carrick exited me that I come back to reality, now sitting over top the mess we made.
My sincerest apologies. I should have held you instead. It would have been easier to clean.
I shook my head. Enough apologies. Come here. I patted the side of the bed as I lay weak. Sweetly, he sat by my side, lifting my upper body into his arms and chest. Despite being made of stone, he felt plenty warm and human. He smelled of incense and salt, I looked up at him, puckering my lips. He captured them only a moment later. I broke the kiss, resting my eyes as I listened to his heart still racing. You feel human.
You sound surprised.
Aren't you a stone creature?
I have the capacity to become stone, just as I have the capacity to appear human. I am both. I didn't think you'd want to make love to marble.
I giggled. With the way I pleasured myself on a still figure before, I definitely wasn't opposed to the idea. He must have read my mind.
Whatever form you prefer, that's what I'll provide.
There is no other form I prefer more than this. Sure, the human form of Carrick was enough to entice a fantasy, but the way I felt about this form, and every aspect of it, I never longed for a human man as long as I shall live. I sooner go to statues. At least they have the capacity to make me orgasm. I stare adoringly up at him, being whisked away by peace I hadn't felt in ages. He pushed a strand of my hair back, admiring me as much as I had him.
You look tired. Don't stay up on my account.
Do you sleep?
Yes, just during the day. The remaining time, I keep watch. I'll be watching for the return of that drunkard.
My guardian.
I'd like to be. More than that, I'd like to be yours. In body and in soul. I know that I can't rush such things. I've had far more time than you. But I hope you'll consider it. Your life is, of course, your own, and I don't want to intrude on it.
Carrick, it's true I don't know what that truly entails for me. It sounds wonderful, as all fantasies do. But you're stone for at least half of your life. I could never do with you what others do with their own partners. I don't long for children, and marriage has always been optional, but they are impossible with you.
You're not wrong. It's a lot to ask. I just know if I don't, I'll regret it all my life.
Do you have any other prospects?
You mean partners? I've had them, but when I move, I live a new life, under a new name. The men I was before are no longer me. The man that I am today belongs to you.
How long will that last? How long until you seek a new home, a new identity?
I don't know. But what I do know is that this is the longest I've been in one place for a century. Your presence, seeing you day in and day out, your soul has kept me here. It's also caused me to question everything I know about mortal living. Most importantly, I believe that instead of seeking humans out for pleasure, I've found someone with whom I'd like to forge a bond with in soul. I always knew, however, that this was always a possibility. You may not need me in your life, but I'm afraid as things stand, I need you in mine. Even if it's just as your friend or guardian.
My heart was tormented by straining and aching alike. He always had a way of speaking that resonated so deeply. The decision was still my own, but somehow that made it harder. He wasn't forcing his way into my life. He knew who I was. and what my life consisted of and wanted me anyway. I just wish you'd given me more than tonight to decide such a thing. If I knew you more, I would have the tools to make a more informed decision. To tell you with certainty what I want. Carrick nodded, understanding despairingly not having tried sooner.
I also needed time to decide I wanted to do this. I hadn't planned to today either, but once the opportunity presented itself, I threw caution to the wind. We've had a wonderful night, one I'm sure to never forget, no matter how many lives I live. I'm glad that you gave me the chance. I cannot ask any more of you than that. I can only hope that you'll give me more. But no matter what your answer is, I will not resent you. Your decisiveness, your honesty, and integrity are just a few of the many things I fell in love with.
In love? He's in love with me?
I'm in love with you. I know you can't return that sentiment just yet, but I believe if you got to know me, you'd be able to fall in love with me too. So, what will it be?
Can we share these nights together still? I want you to be mine. Hello? I want to be with you. Carrick looked surprised, like he prepared for me to say anything else.
Are you sure?
I nodded, stroking his cheek. And I don't regret it.
A glowing review.
He chuckled. I swat his nose with my finger. You surprised me, brought out a side of myself I thought was lost.
I didn't do much, just reminded you of who you already were. I'm glad I could help in any way I could.
I'm sure you are.
I'm at your beck and call whenever you want to feel better about yourself.
I smiled shyly.
So, we're lovers, then? You won't have any more relations with boys?
And you won't with girls? He shook his head.
Absolutely not. I believe you've just ruined me for all other prospects forever.
A tad dramatic, aren't we? He shook his head once more.
You are part of my being. I am no longer myself without you. I hope, with time, I can become the same for you.
I believe I will. I don't think I'd have agreed to any of this if I didn't see potential.
Good. Very good.
He looked incredibly relieved.
I may not be here when you awake, but know that I will be here every night before you go to sleep.
He placed a gentle kiss to my forehead as I began to drift to sleep, comforted in his arms, comforted that he would return. That this wasn't just a single night's worth of excitement and comfort.
Sleep well, my love.
I drifted off into a wonderful, dreamless sleep. As I opened the shop the following day, I could feel Carrick's eyes on me as I worked. I was beaming beneath them, sweeping and humming a pleasant tune. All the way until the sun fell again. I longed to share another night full of chats and caressing. Carrick was at the door as soon as the sun had left. He continued to watch me as I closed, leaning against the counter with that familiar impish expression. We chatted idly about what he'd seen, and questions of what I'd done, sharing stories, laughter, and flattering words. If became our everyday routine. He fitted into my life perfectly. I knew to have the love of someone like him is something that could only have ever been achieved when I had one first for myself. This was my life, and I was grateful he wanted to be part of it. But if I hadn't, that was okay too. To have been acknowledged for my hard work, loved from a distance, and worshipped in the heat of the night, those were the things I deserved. To be cared for, thought of in the way the same I had for others. If I continued to treat others in the way I wanted to, then that kind of love would find me, whether it be as a lover, a friend, or somewhere in between. I was happy to have him for as long as that lasted. If he decided he wanted to live a new life, free from me, I cared for him enough to let him have it. As long as he had the respect to come to me first about it, then I could ask for nothing more. And if he never left my side, always watched me, and left before the early morning sun, then I could ask for nothing more. No matter what was to happen from this moment onward, what we had was carved into my heart like stone. That was it! That was carved in stone. I enjoyed that a lot. I really liked the story part about how the MC's kind of sad that they're kind of getting older. They're not seeing much in their future with like companionship and stuff like that. That's definitely something I can relate to. I'm not old, but like, you know, I'm getting older. I'm getting close to 30s and kind of feeling like not having the same like of my peers and stuff like that. But this kind of made me feel a bit better. I really like that. And Carrick, 100% in love with this man. My God, his voice actor. Hold on. Who's this voice actor? Bro. I'm not sure if I'm saying the last name right, but Mark Steele on Twitter. Definitely will link to that in the description too. Round of applause to his voice actor, because dear God, I was feeling it. I was hot under the collar, my spine was tingling, I was melting into my chair. So yeah, that was carved in stone. Definitely play for yourself, because I might definitely have to cut out the sex scenes. So play for yourself if you want to see it, and play the normal version so you can actually see the uncensored CGs. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, I put links in the description if you want to play yourself. If you want to support the devs and everything, leave comments, what have you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, I'll be releasing more content in the future. And I hope you guys all enjoyed this. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye bye!